The secondary is good because for relatively little money you can buy a car with excellent handling and a lot of comfort options, or even take a premium brand. But where there are pros, there are possible cons that come at a high price. For example, frequent breakdowns. Today we decided to tell you about which cars break down most often and constantly suck money out of their owners. Hello friends. Today, the top 5 most unreliable cars are for you. Let's get started. On the 5th line, Audi A4 to restyle. For rings, excellent controllable, restrained, stylish designs and large investments in repairs, that's what awaits the owner of Audi A4 Thin oil-removing rings from the beach to the restyled A4. Because of them, the oil channels are clogged and the engine consumes oil excessively. The problem is treated by replacing the piston, which, by the way, is more than 150,000 rubles. The second scourge of this body of the current pump, it will have to be changed 60 to 70,000 times, and the cost is also not at all small. Also, a frequent problem of this body is the timing chain bounce. It will cost at least 35,000 rubles. In cars with a robotic gearbox, the mechatronic suffers due to contaminated oil. The replacement cost is also not small. The suspension is also not particularly reliable. Aluminum levers and hub bearings go no more than 80,000. About the same amount is nurst and ball. As a result, if you are ready for such problems, you can safely buy, and if not, we go on to the next place in our rating. Mazda CX-7 hid there. A beautiful Japanese crossover that once made a splash on the Russian market. Customers lined up behind him. Mazda was loved for its excellent handling, dynamics, spaciousness and cool design. Now used CX-7 can be bought cheaper than most new Lada cars. But remember, after the purchase, you will most likely have to invest a lot, because the CX-7 is one of the most frequently broken cars. A turbine powered by 2 and 3 liters does not last long. On average it asks for a replacement every 100,000 kilometers and costs at least 100,000 rubles. The timing chain runs a little longer, but the replacement is also not cheap. Crankshaft inserts also do not live long. The average replacement interval is about 100,000. The cooling system of the CX-7 is also not designed in the best way, and even with a slight overheating, the radiator fails and the pipes burst. The thermostat is generally a consumable. It has to be changed every few years. From dirty oil in the machine, the hydroblock eventually dies. There is no sense to put the restored ones, and a new one from work will cost a lot. Yes, undoubtedly, cars with automatic machines and robots are gaining more and more popularity. Such cars are easier and more comfortable to drive. But in order for such boxes to work properly, they need to be serviced in a timely manner. Do not forget about this. In particular, use a good transmission fluid. It is used to lubricate gears and control hydraulic components when shifting gears. Well, we are moving further down the rating. And there's a Mercedes-Benz with a class of 220 waiting for us. Yes, the 220th was at the same time a breakthrough in technical terms after the conservative 140 and perhaps the most unsuccessful version of the C-Class. There is also a problematic air suspension and bad body paint, which is not typical for Mercedes in principle, and it is worth considering it even for an average cost only if you are a fan of this body, especially since the secondary is often worn, poorly serviced options. The main and most expensive disadvantage of this body is the pneumatic. The resource of the air balloon in the cold and dirty Russian climate is literally a couple of years, and the cost is from 150,000 rubles. Replacing the entire rack will be no less. If the current racks are not replaced in time, then the compressor will have to be changed several times a year, and this is not at all budget-friendly. And another fat minus of the 220th is the often broken electronics blocks in the car. Most often, the unit itself fails, the cost of which is not at all small. You can find cheaper during disassembly, but it's worth trying. The dashboard is also a frequent malfunction. It is Optotronic here. It can break down due to voltage fluctuations and it costs you, too, do not grieve, about 50,000 rubles. But all this is not terrible compared to the Land Rover Range Rover 3. The premium British SUV should be put in the first place in the top. There are rumors and anecdotes about its reliability. It would seem, why even think about buying a Range Rover after such a rating? But the pleasant price on the secondary market still makes you look his way. In many ways, the rumors about the unreliability of the British are greatly exaggerated. The gearbox motors here are quite resource intensive, but this does not negate the high cost of maintenance. The price tag of an oil change, for example, is generally colossal. Changing the front brake pads will generally cost 60,000 rubles. Replacing the chains and replacing the steering rack is all very expensive and often breaks down. With the suspension, everything is somewhat worse. The weak point is the body position sensors. They are on every counter. The front lower levers and ball levers also do not last long. And the most interesting, air suspension. Pneumo stocks do not go more than 150,000 kilometers, and their replacement will be almost a quarter of the cost of this car, just think. And in general, the scourge of suspension for a Range Rover is salt and dirt, so if you decide to buy more often, wash the air tanks, so you will save at least a little. but I hardly surprised anyone with a Range Rover. But the first place of this rating is amazing even for me. This is a Porsche Cayenne Turbo 1. It closes our rating of frequently breaking cars, which at the beginning of the 2000th years generally became the standard of a sports crossover. Powerful engines, perfect handling, an abundance of comfort options, many dreamed of such a car. Now this dream is more than affordable, and the price for the first generation is extremely low. But do not rush to run after the Cayenne for the secondary. The German has a lot of problem areas, and the cost of elimination can cost more than the cost of the car itself. One of the most common problems of 8-cylinder engines is the bulging of the cylinders. It is treated with a sleeve, the cost of which with the replacement of all consumables will upset you extremely. Replacing faulty turbines will also cost a lot. Faulty fuel pumps in the game will take the last money out of your pockets. And if you come across a car body roll suppression system, then generally get ready to fork out. And if the car was not monitored, there is a high probability of failure of the active stabilizers, and the tandem pump gear, which is installed on the car, will also ask for replacement. Typical age-related Soars and Cayenne in the 55th-57th body can easily exceed the price of the cost of the car itself. The leader of the most breaking cars is most often sold with an accident, the calculation of repair work and unpaid fines. And this is the deserved first line of our rating. Well, something like that. Write in the comments what you think about the listed, but also cars. Of course, add your own. What ruined you too much and you spent all your savings on servicing this car? That's all for today. There's still a lot of interesting things ahead. Subscribe, put likes and don't forget to look in. See you soon.